scout rifles, hand cannons, sniper rifles, auto rifles. What do all these things have in common? Resilience really does not matter for them. Welcome back, Guardians, to another Dream Team video. I'm your humble host, Meeson777, and I'm going to be, hopefully, embarking on a new series of videos essentially discussing how I would like to see the Crucible rebalanced. Obviously, I'm not by any means perfect. I have been playing this game for quite a bit, a very fair bit, but I have some ideas on how we should possibly look into reworking some of this stuff. I'm an amateur game designer. I've been studying this kind of stuff for a while. In particular, I've been studying Destiny for a really long time, and I have some ideas on how some things can be changed. If you guys like this idea, we'll go on with the full series. This will be sort of like a pilot episode just to feel it out, and we might do future videos. I think the next video we might do is how we can rebalance hand cannons, but anyway, let's move forward. Resilience. Resilience is an absolute trash tier stat. Ask any high tier player and they will tell you that resilience is probably one of the fewer things that they end up considering. Now, it's not to say, I already know someone in the comment section is going to be writing that at 5 or 6 or such and such resilience, you can survive things like Thorn and powered sniper rifle. I get that. I'm not saying that resilience is completely useless. I'm saying that it is trash. I'm saying that it is not a stat that you are willingly speccing into outside of, you already have everything else already kind of set up, right? You've got good mobility, you've got good recovery, maybe a fair intellect stat, and you're gonna go ahead and put some into resilience just to help break some of those points, right? For Thorn and, you know, the high impact snipers and so forth with the empowering rift, right? I'm not saying they're useless. Please don't think that I'm saying that it's completely useless. I'm just saying that it's not as good as it should be. I've seen a lot of different opinions on how it should be reworked. One of the opinions I've seen is that resilience should reduce the amount of flinch. Now, while I think that it is a pretty, fair idea, it's analog to resilience. You know, you can, if you're more resilient, you don't flinch as much, it makes sense, but the problem is that that really kills the variety of perks you can get for your armor, because currently the perks for your armor allow you to get the flinch resistance and such, right? Maybe they do both, but I don't want to live in a world where a sniper cannot be flinched off because they have an absolute maximum tier resilience and an enhanced unflinching sniper aim, right? I don't want to live in that world. I already am painfully well acquainted with the world of unflinching sniper rifle aim as is. I've also seen some people, I'm going to be a little bit bold here and say naively suggest that resilience should reward more health, as in like maximum tier resilience should bring you up to like 210 rather than like 203, I think is what brings you up right now. And I also think that's not a great way to do it, because what that will do is that certain weapons that right now work in a certain way will get completely flipped on their head. I think that will shake up the meta way too much, and it'll take way too long to figure everything back out. Some of you might think that's a good idea and that we need to do one of those big changes, but if history tells us anything, if we're going to buff or nerf something, it should be done with a scalpel, not with a butcher's chopping block, right? The amount of times that we've gotten something that's good, like the Recluse, and then it gets just watered down to the point of being useless. Maybe not the Recluse explicitly, I think that might have been a bad example. But, you know, we get a weapon that's really, really good, nerfed to absolute oblivion, or a weapon that's not great and gets buffed to a point where everybody runs it, insert 600 autos. So let's talk about specifically where I think certain resilience breakpoints should exist. This is going to be a general idea. I do not have I'm not Datto. I'm not going to sit down with a spreadsheet and give you a one-for-one of where I think things should be. I'm going to give you a general idea and then, you know, just leave it at that, right? Give it to a point where we know how we need to get there, but we just don't know what it ends up looking like at the end, right? So let's talk specifically about the Mida. The Mida multi-tool is my favorite weapon in the game. I love it so much. It's a great benchmark for the balance of the rest of the game, because if the Mida doesn't feel good, that means that there's probably something that's wrong with the meta. Right now, Mida doesn't feel good. That's because the 600 autos are a little strong, but you're not here to hear me bellyache about my primary weapon not being good. You're here to talk about resilience. So the thing that's interesting about 200 scouts in particular, Mida just being an example, is that at very low resilience, which most Guardians are actually running because, again, it's a trash tier stat, you can actually head, body. 3 to the head, 1 to the body, and it will kill them. But that's not to be the case for most everything else. Most everything else that exists in the game does not have any interesting breakpoints for resilience. Running max resilience, running minimal resilience, it makes no difference. It's the same general time to kill values. Also, not to mention that it's generally just not worth exploring. There isn't enough breakpoints that exist in the game in order for you to be encouraged to try resilience. Now, the thing I think that makes resilience interesting over something like recovery and mobility is recovery and mobility are very clearly visible. They are very easy to see how they're affecting you, right? If you've got a low recovery, you feel how long that it takes for you to get your health back. You've got a high mobility, you feel fast when you're strafing around. Your jumps are a little bit higher, you feel good. But when you don't, you can feel it, right? You can tell the difference between the two. Resilience is harder to tell because it's something that you aren't necessarily seeing exactly. Now, there may be times when you see yourself being at absolute minimal health and you'd be like, hey, my resilience was actually pretty helpful there. Most of the time, that's not the case, right? So, Mida. Back to Mida. And I'm sorry that if this is a bit rough. I'm not really going off of a script here. I just wanted to get these thoughts out there while it was still buzzing around in my head. Mida. Mida is a great example for how weapons, I believe, should be balanced. They open up that level of forgiveness that people have been begging for in the Crucible. Let me give you an example. If you don't believe me, let me give you an example. 140 hand cannons. How many times have you heard people say, please buff 140 hand cannons? Now, if they did end up buffing 140 hand cannons, here's how I think they should do it. This is tying back to resilience. If at very high resilience, we're talking like 8 or so resilience, you could survive the newly buffed 140 hand cannons, that makes resilience seem a lot more interesting. Because whereas before it would have very comfortably killed you with 2 to the head, 1 to the body, right, with a slight buff to maybe body shot damage like the 140s possibly should be receiving. Now at the high resilience stat, it makes it feel a lot more interesting, encouraging players to run that stat, because you know people are going to be running 140 hand cannons if they get that level of forgiveness. The same can be applied to other weapons. For example, the 180 RPM scouts are kind of trashed here. It's because you can basically do everything that you would like to do better with any other variety of scout or any other variety of hand cannon. Now, we could talk about these until we're blue in the face, but I think you get the general idea. For the most case, all the weapons in terms of body shot damage should be very slightly, I'm talking very slightly, maybe headshot damage depending on how Bungie sees, like how the damage numbers end up falling through, very slightly increase the damage so that more resilience would make it so that the forgiveness that these new weapon damages give are taken away and they're essentially put back to where they were, if that makes sense, right? So like I said, let's use 140s again in case maybe you're a little lost on what I'm saying here. If 140s received a buff where they, say, dealt a little bit more body shot damage, allowing you to 2 head and 1 to the body, with higher resilience, it would basically be back to where it was. It would require 3 to the head, right? And that's a crucial understanding of how games are balanced. Games in terms of multiplayer should be as equally interesting to react to as they are to act to. The person who has the high resilience is now a lot more interesting to engage upon, because whereas before, 1 out of every 10 Guardian had a high resilience, this happens to be that 1 out of the 10. But the 9 out of the 10 Guardians before that, it was 2 to the head, 1 to the body. Now this guy is different, and that changes the way that you're playing the game, making the game feel more alive. You can disagree with me, but at the end of the day, if you have to engage somebody slightly different than you had to before, and it's not anything where it makes the game annoying, right? It just requires you to play better. It pushes you to play better. That is more interesting gameplay. I think we can all agree on that. If you disagree with me, respectfully, leave it down in the comment section down below. So, in general, hand cannons and scout rifles, in particular, those are the precision type weapons, should make it so that the body shot damage should be very slightly increased, meaning that a higher resilience stat would allow you to survive the body shot damage that you wouldn't normally be able to. Okay? Let's talk about something else. Sniper rifles. Sniper rifles recently received a pretty hefty nerf, and that unfortunately bled into the PvP world. In particular, 140 sniper rifles now are completely incapable of two-shotting to the body outside of 0 resilience, which is actually impossible if you have purple armor. And it's impossible. You have 2 in the resilience stat at least bare minimum, so you have at least 1 point of resilience. I digress. What I would suggest is that these 140 sniper rifles, I almost called them a scout rifle because that's kind of what they are, but these 140 sniper rifles should be capable of 2-shot bodying a low resilience guardian. Make it so that instead of dealing, I believe it's 91 right now, make it so that they deal, say, 95. 95 times 2 is 190, meaning that at low resilience, you would actually be able to very comfortably do a 2-shot body. Now, of course, you're going to still be encouraged to do headshots, but that makes it so that if there's a Guardian that comes in with high resilience, you are now required to be a lot more accurate than you were before. Similarly, we can talk about some specific perks. I ran my box breathing Twilight Oath against my friend who was running his roaming super. It is very shy of being able to kill him with box breathing, which is incredibly disappointing. Now, again, same idea. Have it deal, I'm talking minuscule amounts of extra damage. We're talking like fractions of a percent extra damage on box breathing or on precision headshots, allowing that weapon to now, at low resilience, kill that roaming super out if it has box breathing. Very slim situation. Let's talk about 90 RPMs. Weapons like the Beloved, the things that I think all of us were a little sad about, because when 90 RPMs and 140 RPMs got nerfed, that means that the 72 RPMs, such as Revoker, just became the very clear, obvious winner. They can snipe supers, they deal a lot of damage. Like, that's what you need from a sniper, right? Anyway, I digress. If 90 RPMs, same idea, we're talking fractions of a percentage more damage to precision targets. We're like very small amounts. We're talking just a few extra damage points, like 4 or 5 extra damage points. Low resilience Guardians would die from that headshot, whereas high resilience Guardians would probably survive. Now, of course, there's things like Team Shot, but we're talking in a pure sense, right? We're talking in a clinical sense, because it doesn't feel good. Let's be honest, guys. It doesn't feel good when you headshot with a 90 RPM, a roaming super, and they get away, get their health back, and kill more people. It doesn't feel good. You probably slowed them down, and you're just more an annoyance to them, right? But if we made it so that resilience actually had these more interesting breakpoints, we have points now whereas before you would say, if you were giving me the choice between mobility, resilience, and recovery, I'm always going to pick mobility and recovery before resilience. Any day of the week, it really does not matter. Now it becomes interesting. Now when you're sitting there looking at your character sheet and you think to yourself, what should I allocate my mod slots into for my stat points on my armor? Now you start to ask yourself, how much do I care about surviving things? Because now I'm going to require, with a higher resilience, I'm going to require my enemy to be more precise on me, allowing me to survive a little bit more. Anyway, I could talk about this for a while until I'm blue in the face, but if you stuck around this long, I would really appreciate a sub. We are about 100 subs away from being monetized, and if we could hit that with this video, that'd be fantastic. We would literally be living the dream. I would squeal like a girl. It'd be absolutely fantastic. But anyway, you can drop a sub. If you can share us around, that is wonderful. We would be so thankful. Thank you all so much for joining me here. Look forward, if you're interested, and let me know in the comment section as well. Look forward to future videos talking about rebalancing the game a little bit and some ideas on how to do it. I'd love to hear if that sounds like something that you're interested in. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I've been talking here for a minute. Bless your faces. Catch you in the next video.